The relationships
Yeah.
we value are relationships in which there's shared suffering. Pain, darkness, they all provide a kind of depth in the human relationship and human experience that you don't get otherwise.
Welcome to Permission Slips, a space for you to practice paying attention to your life with self-compassion and kindness so you can experience the wholeness, purpose, and joy you were made for. I'm Jillian DeBritz, a life and leadership coach and a recovering perfectionist, learning alongside you how to give myself permission to be human. I am so glad you are here with me today for this conversation with today's guest, Justin McRoberts. Justin, thanks so much for being here.
I'm thrilled. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's such a privilege. And there's so much goodness I know in store for us all. I'm sure so many listeners already know who you are, but for those who don't, I want you to know, friends, that Justin McRoberts is a big deal. He is an author, he's a coach, a speaker, and a songwriter. When he's not writing, speaking, or coaching, you can also find him as the host of the At Sea podcast, which is where he helps people navigate their lives at the intersection of arts, faith, and leadership. And we're celebrating big time that he just released his 8th book. 8 books, Justin.
Yes, ma'am.
Crazy. And his 3rd with Scott Erickson called In the Low.
Oh, there
Honest Prayers. There it is. Yes. Honest Prayers for Dark Seasons. He lives in the East San Francisco Bay Area. And I love this, Justin. You call your mom every day.
I do.
Is that true? That's
100%.
Amazing.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're in the book launch season, and we were chatting before. You're saying that you're not making a big thing of the book launch process.
No, I mean, I'm trying to be, and this is true of Scott and I both. We're trying to be like appropriately attentive to it.
Yeah.
But anything along these lines where like you work on something for a long time and then you release into the world, whether it's like it's an initiative or it's an election or, I mean, it's your kid's birthday or whatever. Like we tend to, and I do too, we tend to sort of like add anxiety on top of things by like, I don't know, it's artificial urgencies. We just apply these artificial urgencies on top of things. And so like, are we doing a good job of getting the word out with the book? Yeah, I think so. But I'm just not, I want to enjoy this. Like I think it's a big deal. It's for me, like 8 books in, it's still exciting and it's still like a gift. It's what a privilege to be able to do that. Like I put stuff together and I assembled it and became a book, and some publishing house said, we want to be part of that. And then they made the thing happen. And then it's on bookshelves. Like I still want to think that that's kind of magic.
Yeah.
And I kill my own connection with it if I attach myself to like, well, now it has to do this. You have so little I can control about how sales goes. I can control a whole bunch of other stuff, and I'm going to enjoy that. I did the writing part, forged some partnerships. It's out. People who, some people are getting it. Great. The rest of it that I can't control, if I attach myself to it, I get lost and I stop enjoying it.
I love that. I mean, and that's just, it seems like a really healthy detachment in this industry where you really can be, driven completely by the external performance. We talked about these external metrics of success, which there's never enough, right? There's never enough sales to feel, if that's our measure, to feel like we've arrived. And I love this book so much. I shared with you before we started recording that this book called In the Low, Honest Prayers for Dark Seasons. It really is like an honest permission to be honest about where we're at.
Yes.
And even the hard places we find ourselves. And this is the book I needed. I've needed it so many different points in my life, but I needed it yesterday. I shared with you, before we started recording, I have been in just a place of depletion and exhaustion. And I want to read one of the prayers, one of the longer prayers that you wrote in this, just as a snippet, a sample for people. And most of these are pretty short, but this one really resonated with me yesterday. And I spent quite a bit of time, actually a couple hours with this book. I may or may not have read the whole thing, which people should know. That's doable because there's illustrations and prayers. And so, it's not as dense in terms of writing as most books. But this prayer resonated again with where I'm at. So let me just read it. I spent so much time working to be a world changer. I forged myself into the most useful instrument. I had hope that I would be used by powerful hands to make a difference. But I wear out and I tire of labor. My exhaustion renders me ill fit for use. In the low, I make no change and I make little difference. In the low, I hope and long to be rescued and helped by kind and careful hands. Remind me that there is more to me than my usefulness and my strength. Teach me that achievement is too small a thing to contain a human soul. Rescue me from the smallness of mind that allows me to be allured and captured by agendas that require me to be usable. May my time in the low help cure me of my addiction to accomplishment. Show me that I am loved in strength and in weakness. That kind of love actually changes things. Justin, these words, these prayers, they didn't just materialize out of thin air, out of an abstract place of creativity. Can you talk about where this book came from, where these prayers came from?
Yeah, I mean, it's the old adage about art and art making is an artist makes what she or he needs to see in the world. There are things we want to be true, things that we want someone else to say. And usually, if we grow up and there's music and books and imagery that helps us form, what does it look like? What does it look like internally to live in the world? Well, this song gives me a kind of shape, and this poem or this book or this TV show or this comic book character or whatever. Later in life, when other people's expressions, at whatever point, at some point, other people's expressions really just don't do the trick. And so artists are folks who make those things. They're making books and music, and they're creating different kinds of neighborhoods. We make what we want to see in the world. Well, the long history of being me comes along with, I live with ADHD. I was one of those kids who's diagnosed. I'm 52. I'll be 52 in January. So when they were diagnosing kids, back when I was a kid, it was you're broken was the diagnosis. That there was you have a thing and you were wild and we must medicate you. And it was, they called it hyperactive. They didn't even call it a disorder at the time. They're just you're hyperactive. Okay, I think I'm just a boy. But
but what a label, like a stigmatic label.
You're hyperactive. And I had, my later on diagnoses, and as the world has gotten better about figuring out what ADHD is, if it has, part of the dark side to the ADHD thing, when we're through with all the joking, because it almost always comes with all these jokes about being ADHD, is it ADHD, there's a comorbidity rate between ADHD and depression that's super duper high. People who live with ADHD tend to live with depression for all kinds of reasons. Some of that's chemical, but a lot of it has to do with how I live in the world and the many places I feel isolated, alone, in which I'm having experiences or thoughts that other people aren't having. And along with that, on both sides of my family, there's been a truckload of a different undiagnosed depression, some diagnosed depression. So I've got these threads of depression that have run through my life forever. These are poems for me that the kind of which I've been writing, honestly, since I was in high school. But I would just I would write something that felt good. That's why I was listening to The Cure and the Smiths and all that kind of stuff. It was that felt good. And so I started trying to write things that also felt good. Words that I could externalize, so that I could see what my innards look like, as opposed to just be in the world of feeling, in which I feel kind of lost in my own guts. Is one of the gifts that art provides us. Is
Totally.
I take as best I can this stuff going on in here, put it outside, and it gives me a sense of that this thing is not bigger than me. It is smaller than I am. My feelings are smaller than me. So I can read them, or I can look at them. And as an adult, the more I have made things that have helped people, the more I've trusted that this is a thing that I could potentially do to help folks. Getting into depression or suicidal ideations, it's one thing to say, hey, I really want to help you with your creative process and help you, um, get better at making things. It's another thing to say like, oh, we want to help you with your primary relationships. And like, we're going to talk about marriage and community. It's a very different thing to say, we want to get into like the darkest parts of the corners of your mind and soul and try to help you there.
Yeah.
That's definitely
Yeah.
one of those places where a lot of us tend to say, I don't want you in here. So
Yeah.
eventually over the course of years, really years, like looked up and had this collection of things that I had written or little prompts and decided that let's take this and actually make something and see if we can make a helpful artifact in the world. But it really did
Mm.
grow out of, I've lived here forever.
Yeah. Man, I so appreciate how you're naming this idea that there are places inside of us. As someone who has experienced the depths of despair and depression, I I don't know that everyone experiences this. I assume so because this is so resonates with my lived experience. But there are places inside of us that feel dark and scary that it's almost as if no one could ever possibly understand or
Yeah.
climb inside. And these prayers are almost an invitation to, like, it's almost as if as I read those, you have climbed inside. Someone safe that it has also been here is climbing inside me and saying, there's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
You're not the only one. You're not alone. And even on the back of the book, it said, we spend time in the low because we're human, not because we're broken.
Yes.
And just normalizing that experience that just because we're low does not mean we're broken.
No,
It's part of being human. Yeah.
it's an essential part of being human. Really, honestly, Jillian, maybe more so now than like 10 or so years ago. It's how important is it right now to identify our shortcomings, our flaws, like our imperfections as like necessary and good elements of being human, right?
Mm.
So like as we're having our jobs replaced by machinery and artificial intelligence and all this kind of stuff, like the motivation behind like swapping out a human and replacing it with AI is like the AI will do this better, more efficiently. Like that's just like the driving force of the American economy right now is we need to become better, more efficient, like fewer errors, no typos, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And with this book and with a lot of my life and a lot of my work, but with this book specifically, I'm trying to offer a counter narrative here that actually slowness and imperfection, those are good things.
Mm.
They make you human. They attach you to other people. Your need, the fact that you're slower at something or not as good at something means you have to attach yourself to other people. Meanwhile, you're still as longing to be attached to other people. Our shortcomings, our pitfalls, all these things that are imperfect about us are actually good parts of who we are. It is a really garbage sales narrative that wants you to feel like your imperfections are all things that you need to somehow bypass, or we need you to bypass. That's really what it is. We need somehow to navigate, get past all your shortcomings because we've got stuff to do. We have accomplishments, we have achievements, we have bottom lines. We need to continue to grow the economy, and your shortcomings and your slowness, all those are in the way. So you have this big machine around us constantly telling us that being human, here's the heart of it, being human is a problem and it's not enough. That you being human isn't going to get us where we're supposed to go. That is the grand economic like narrative in the United States of America. And part of what I'm doing with the book is saying like, I think that narrative is trash and that our shortcomings are actually a beautiful part of who we are. And we should acquaint ourselves with.
Yeah. Well, and even recognizing, I can't remember where I heard this definition of mental health, but that mental health has to do with our ability to experience the full range of human emotion and to regulate and process those emotions in an appropriate way and in the appropriate setting. And so I'm hearing you say, yeah, we could, engineer our weakness or our hard emotions out of life and become robots and lose our mental health. We could be numb and we could be efficient. We could be productive, but just like this prayer that I just read, productivity kills my soul.
Totally.
Productivity and efficiency as my goal kills my soul. And yet so much of my identity can so easily become wrapped up in what I have to offer and what I have to produce.
Yes.
So I love that you're saying, yeah, this is the part of our humanness is our need to be attached to other people.
Yes.
And as we're able to share the dark parts of ourselves, the places in us that I wish weren't there, that I wish I
Yeah.
could achieve my way away, achieve out of those experiences, that's actually necessary if we want to be
Yes.
human and alive in the world. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's part of how we feel. And to have feelings is good. That's, I mean, to
Okay,
have,
people might argue with that. People might argue with that. Say why.
you know, how many ways do I want to say this? Um, your feelings are trustworthy partners in life. Your feelings are never wrong. The conclusions you make about what to do about your feelings can be destructive and silly, but your feelings aren't wrong. There was a book, gosh, how many years ago? I'm going to blank on the name of the book, but it is about like modern day leprosy, and that like the issue with a lot of leprous persons is that they don't have feeling in a certain part of their bodies, and eventually wears, like, because they don't experience pain somewhere, they continue to injure themselves over and over in the same spot. So like, because you don't have feeling here, it's like your pain is hard, is part of how you learn to navigate the world. It's part of how you learn to navigate where you want to be. Your pain is also how you identify with other people. And if you don't have a sense of suffering, if you don't have a sense of disappointment or disillusionment, then you can't relate with other people when they're disillusioned. And
Mm,
like, maybe almost all of the pathways through which we enter into life with other people have to do with shared suffering. Like, we
mm,
very rarely, if you look at the course of our better relationships, the stories we have to tell, the adventures we have, they're always like, it's always Frodo in the ring trying to get to Mordor. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
mm,
there's something wrong that we don't like, that we want to, like, it, we enter into relationship, we enter into meaning through the doorway of feeling, and specifically negative feelings. And
mm.
so to eliminate those would be to remove adventure from life. It would be to remove like the sweetness of actual relationship. Like, no one has those. I will say it like this: in the relationships in which like all that's going on is espresso martinis and shopping. We call those surfacey relationships,
Mhm.
right? The relationships
Yeah.
we value are relationships in which there's shared suffering.
Mm,
And that's not just like an unfortunate aspect of life. Like, we like that about that relationship. Pain, darkness, they all provide a kind of depth in human relationship and the human experience that you don't get otherwise. The odd is, as I say, something in our souls needs pain, needs suffering, needs to feel loss, wants to not know the next step. Like, it's
ugh,
part of how we're designed. And the sales narratives around us, including the really bad religious sales narratives,
mm,
want us to ignore those parts of us and just go like aim at the sort of the espresso martini, go shopping part of
yeah.
life, and then tell us that they can provide us with those things.
Mhm.
But the
I
human
just,
soul desires more.
yeah, as you're talking, I just have to confess, Justin, there's this part of me that's like physically recoiling at this idea that suffering is good, that pain is a necessary part of life and connection, and that our soul longs for it. Like, there's this part of me that is like wanting to push back and say, no, no, I reject not you, not your statement, but the parts of my life that involve suffering. I do everything that I can to avoid those places.
Yeah.
Everything. Which is why places of depression or even low, like yesterday, I would say that I am not in a place of depression over, in terms of diagnoses and over time, but I've been in a really low place for a few days, and there's lots of legitimate reasons for that I could list and name. But the reality was yesterday, I was hopeless and feeling the sense of despair, depletion, exhaustion, which is a huge part of it for me. And the thing that made it worse was that not only was I struggling for all sorts of different reasons with how I was feeling, but I felt bad about myself for feeling bad.
Yeah.
So there's this part of me that was heaping shame on top of the hard place I was already in. And this has been my experience in times of depression too, where
Yeah.
I am telling myself, you are so weak. You're just, you're a living emotional roller coaster.
Mhm.
If you did this and this and this, you wouldn't struggle so much. How can you ask people to pray for you or support you again? Again? Like you need encouragement again? Like the shame narrative that I was heaping on top of the pain that was already there was what made it even, a million times more painful.
Yep.
So what you're saying about the story we tell ourselves based on our emotions, that makes a ton of sense to me.
Yeah. The whole pushback. I'm looking for this prayer that Scott wrote, in which she basically says, I'll recite it from memory, that like it makes sense that the first species in human history to like have a sense of how bad things are. Like, you know what I mean? Like deer and sea otters aren't out there being like, they don't have existential crises, right?
Right?
But we do, and so it makes sense if we're going to have this experience of life in which we have these peaks and these, if we have feelings, well, it makes sense, doesn't it? That we would have like sadness and disillusionment, and we are right to like look around at like the raw numbers of at least an aspect of human experience, in which like during the 45 or 60 minutes we're on this call, there are kids in parts of my state who like won't make it through the day because they don't have enough food. What the hell? Like there are people being like pulled out of their cars in traffic and shipped like to some sort of detention center in the right now, like the 10 miles from where I am. There was a family split up last night. Like, guy was at his church. He was in his church parking lot. They pulled him out of his church parking lot. They took dad away. They don't know where he is. So you've got a mom who doesn't have a job, two kids, and they just, some guys with guns and masks broke his car window open. Like, we should have a negative feeling about life.
Yeah.
Like those negative feelings attach us to part of the reality of life.
So how do we have those negative feelings and not be consumed by them? Because what I hear that and I'm like, well, how can we survive that? How can we survive the pain that hearing those stories even causes me right now? I can feel my heart, like my chest is clenching, listening. How do we survive that?
We practice. We practice having them. We practice, and for a time you practice, and you have to be okay with being overwhelmed, right? I mean, it's like physical. Everything's like physical exercise. It's like physical exercise is
Totally.
whether you go to the gym or you go on that first run or whatever, and that first exercise or the first week of exercise, sometimes the first month, I mean, it's hell.
Yeah.
And like you wake up in the morning and like your whole body hurts. Like this, it's a part of my body I didn't even work out. I wasn't even. Why did my back hurt? I was doing legs. Like it just. That's how. But as we practice that, our bodies get used to that. So every new thing always feels massive. Every new adventure internally always feels like it's too much. And for a minute, it's not that it's too much. It's just that it's new and we don't know how to do it. We are, I'll say two things here. We are generally ill-practiced at, not negativity, because we're definitely practicing negativity. We're definitely, we are generally ill-practiced at sadness and lament. And that's just been true because the narrative, specifically in the States, is like upward. What do they say? Upward and to the right or whatever. Like it's this.
Yeah.
Things are going to keep getting better. We're the United States of America. We're going to keep making money. Life's going to keep getting better, like constantly. Let's just hit pause and identify, like that's just a story. There's nothing actually real about that. Doesn't come down from on high, that the United States of America will continue to get better. There'll be more wealth, greater, like this is just a story we made up. And in the context of that story in which things constantly just get better, like we're not really allowed to like practice and get acquainted with the griefs of life or the sadness in us that would say like, I'm not going to get better today. And I'm not even going to work to get better today. I'm going to work at B. I'm going to exist. So the human soul, rightfully so, like hits pause on false narratives constantly. This is part of why our feelings are so good. I can reason myself to like aligning myself with this, but my feelings will never align myself to this. Yeah. Like, even as I said, I hope your listeners like put in your brain right now the idea like you have to get better tomorrow, and then the day after you get better tomorrow, you have to get even better the next day. Like put that in your soul and tell me how it feels. And I think what happens is our souls say, oh, to hell with that. I would like to get through today. I would in fact like to enjoy today. And part of what steals our joy is we have to constantly get better. So all
Yeah.
that to say, we have to practice. The narrative around us really, really doesn't want us to practice this.
Yeah.
And it pushes back against us. So we rewrote a book that said, hey, why don't we do this? Instead of today, when you're getting pounded by, like, you get this terrible news about your kid and her grades, and you figured out like part of what's going on with her, and you really didn't want to hear that story about your daughter and what's going on with her at school and her friends like that. Like, well, today's not a day to get better. Today's a day to feel. Today's a day to, to be sad. Because what your daughter doesn't need on that day is for you to be like, okay, we need to fix this and get better. Your daughter needs you to sit down and say, I feel this with you. We have to
Wow.
practice doing this.
Wow. Which I'm so aware of how difficult it is to practice sitting in hard, painful, uncomfortable emotional experiences. Like that, it feels counterintuitive. It feels like when I imagine doing that, it feels like choosing to suffer. It feels like I'm wallowing. It feels like I'm making things worse by focusing on it. It feels like, oh, if I allow myself to feel the full weight of sadness, it's going to consume me and I'm never going to get out of it. It's never going to end. That's the fear, right? But okay, this is another prayer that came to mind as you were talking. This is a short one, as many of them are. It says, may I be reminded that my current situation is not my final destination. There's more to my life beyond the fog of today.
Yes.
And again, in seasons of depression, where the story I was telling myself is this is who I am now. This is how I'm always going to show up in the world. This is how I'm always going to be. It's how I'm always going to feel. Like this is the truth that I needed to hear, which is it will get better. And there is more to the story than what I'm experiencing. Yes, these feelings are true.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the whole story.
Yes.
How I feel is true, but it's not the whole story.
Yeah. I mean, we're always at like mile 3 of 5 or what, or, mile 17 of 25 or 26. And like when you're in it, like all you're experiencing, like this is everything right now. And for the time being, like that's what you're experiencing. Your legs are burning, your lungs are tired. You don't want to keep pushing. But if you do run that race and don't quit, what you find out is like, oh, okay, that sucked for like a mile and a half or maybe for 7. And then it was over. And we
Yeah.
only learn that by doing it. That's it.
By
They're like,
surviving. Yeah.
we literally only learn some things by doing that. And part of what I would suggest is culturally necessary, also personally necessary, is to learn the goodness of pain and disillusionment and frustration, which means they have to find, for the let those things have context. In order for them to have context, we have to be acquainted with them for a while, finish the session, finish the time, like get through that time, and then do the work of reflection. Let's take a look back. Let's actually hit pause. Let's take a look back. Why was that so hard? Learn some things. Okay, that's why that was hard. Well, it's going to get hard again. The biggest lesson, like I got through it. So there's more to me, or more strength in me than I knew, which is one of the invitations of the low.
Yeah. Well, and I'm wondering for people who are listening that maybe are finding themselves in a low place. Maybe it's a place they've been for a long time, or maybe it's a place that is just settling in on them. I'm wondering if you have any advice for them in how to practice, how to navigate, how to survive the season and keep running when
Yes.
it's natural to do everything you can to get out of it, or to think you should be able to get out of it. What advice would you give them?
I would like first, like, the encouragement of recognizing that the desire to get out of it is that's a narrative that has been pushed upon you by people who are trying to sell you things. The folks who want to sell you like meds or programs, like they can tell you that, like, okay, well, I can help you avoid pain. I mean, we could spend a whole long time here on like why it is that the what is the $33 billion industry, like antidepressive meds, $33 billion. So with $33 billion on the table, you don't think people are out there trying to pitch you a story? So some of why you identify, not why you feel these things, but some of how you identify those feelings, like that's coming from a place that doesn't want the best for you. It wants to make you part of its machinery. So that's an encouragement. Like I would suggest like sitting and working with someone, whether it's a coach, whether it's a therapist, spiritual director, and like get into like what's actually going on with you at the time and pay attention to it instead of getting into therapy or getting into coaching or spiritual direction to figure out how to get out of where you're going. Like get in there with someone and ask someone to help shed some light on what's going on in you, not just so you can get out, but because your soul might be trying to tell you something, especially if you keep coming back to the same thing. Like trust that your soul might be wiser than your reasoning brain is. Your reasoning brain makes crap up all the time. And you know, at this point, if you've been alive long enough, is like, it's wrong a lot. But your guts, your feelings, your like the soul level, like it's constantly telling you a truth. So spend enough time there to figure out like, what's going on here? Don't get out. Don't just leave because you're going to go back. You know, you're going to go back. So figure out what's happening here. Figure out what the invitation is. That's the primary thing I would say is like flip the script on what it looks like to heal, what it looks like to do that work, and make therapy, spiritual direction, and coaching about learning yourself rather than like fixing yourself.
Yeah, that's so good, Justin. That invitation to be curious without judgment. And that's something that I heard during one of my seasons of being in the low was that curiosity and judgment can't coexist. They don't work at the same time. So if we're curious, we're not judging ourselves.
Which is where help is so helpful, which is why an outside perspective is so helpful is you sit with someone and they can ask questions. This is, again, therapy, coaching, spiritual direction. As you tell your story, you're so familiar with your own story, and we're patterned at the way we tell our stories. And so we're patterned at the conclusions we come to about what all this means. You're oftentimes a really bad interpreter of your own life. So having someone else say, wait, you just said this thing like 3 times in a row. Do you hear yourself say that? And you're like, no, I didn't. What do you mean? You say this thing, like you come to the edge of like, you're having this feeling and then you say this. Who is that? Who's that person? What is that about? And having someone who's not like in your feelings, be curious about your feelings, helps you, one, get curious about your feelings, but also get some altitude where like you don't feel so bad about having bad feelings because this person doesn't feel bad. They find it fascinating. It's so interesting to me that you keep doing this thing. That's really weird. It's a little unfortunate that you do, but mainly it's like, that's fascinating. You have to have outside help in order to get there.
Yeah. Well, and I love that too, when you're in a place like me, and maybe not everyone struggles with shame as much as I do, but Enneagram 4 here, when I'm beating myself up for how I'm feeling, I need another brain. I need another compassionate presence to offer me compassion so I can borrow theirs when I can't give it to myself. I don't have that sense of compassion for myself when I'm spiraling in shame. And Kurt Thompson would say we can't offer that to ourselves. We need someone to come and find us in that shame and in those dark places. And so you're saying, like find someone who can hold space for you and not let judgment come in and beat you up.
100%.
That can help. Yeah. Is there a prayer that you want to read to us or one of the poems here?
The prayer I think is kind of close to the heart of the book. Reads this way. It says, "My hope is not simply that I will rise back to the surface, though I do hope that. But more than that, my hope is that I will learn to breathe at this depth." That's for me, that's kind of heart of the intention of the book is like, learn to breathe here. Like there's one, because part of experiencing these darker, deeper feelings means that there is more to you than you thought. You have feelings that go that deep. That's not something you wanted to be true of you, but it's something that's true of you. And if we continue to return those places, boy, how exhausting is it to like try to stop being part of who we are. That's exhausting.
Yeah.
And that's where shame enters in. And that's where like real deep existential tiredness comes from. It's like, I'm constantly trying to not be part of who I am. Yeah. So, working with someone, getting a book that helps like learn to breathe there. Like on those days or those weeks when it's just a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's learn that. Let's learn how to do that.
Yeah. I so appreciate that permission and the invitation that you're giving us to not be afraid of the depths. And the image that goes with that, if I'm remembering correctly, is it's almost like a scuba mask. Someone
Yeah,
is
just
deep,
on
deep down
here
underwater. Yeah, yeah. It's
for the
so good.
YouTube.
For the YouTube. Yeah. At the bottom of the ocean, there's a line attached to a boat at the top, and the person is sitting at the bottom of the ocean. And the reality is, Justin, I don't want to be buried under the weight of the ocean. I don't want to go there. I'm terrified of it. I'm terrified that I'll never get out.
Yeah,
I'm terrified that it's going to crush me.
yeah,
Because in those moments, that's what it feels like. It's going to crush me. And
totally.
especially if I feel like it's my fault that I'm there, which is,
Mm,
again, part of the narrative that I believe. And so I so appreciate this book and the invitations that you're continually offering to not be afraid of the depths,
yes.
to not be afraid, but to be curious about what we can learn about ourselves in the experience. Yeah. So you're a coach.
Hmm.
You do spiritual direction with people also. And I know you work especially with people who are in creative arts and in leadership. I'm curious, in the work that you do, how do you come alongside people as they're trying to create goodness and beauty in the world in the ways that you have with this book?
Yeah. I mean, like methodologically, I try to ask a lot of questions. I don't have like a
Yeah.
program or anything I run people through. I just
Yeah.
ask a lot of
Yeah.
questions and let people rummage around in
Yeah.
their own brains. The main thrust of my work is I try to help people identify what it is they're wanting to be doing.
Mm,
Like what is it you're really, really wanting to be
yeah.
doing? So when folks come to me, whether it's a leadership thing or it's a creativity thing, there's usually some sort of like a conflict. So, and they'll articulate it as like a conflict of like time. Like I don't have enough time
Sure.
to do a thing, or I don't know choose between these things, or I don't know how to get this done. And really, at the core of all this is like what are you wanting? What are you actually wanting to do? So anytime there's a conflict, a calendar conflict, all the calendar really is an expression. It's for the most part an expression of competing wills.
Yeah.
Like the calendar looks the way it looks because different people want different things, and we're all
Yeah.
trying navigate it on the calendar. So identifying what it is you're wanting. And then once we're on the what are you actually wanting train, like things tend to get moving. So most of what I
Yeah.
try to do is help people attach themselves to what is it you're actually wanting to do, to achieve? What are you wanting to do in the world? That tends to be kind of the thing that greases the whatever that gets the machine
Yeah.
doing.
I love that. Building that awareness of like what's the longing inside? Like what's that internal reality that we don't often pay attention to, just like we're talking about with the content of this book.
Yeah.
And I love, as I coach, same. I just love being able to help people excavate what's
Totally.
inside of them to bring that to the surface.
Get into that.
How can people get a hold of you if they want to work with you?
I'm on the internet. So
Yeah.
you can go to justinmcroberts.com and everything kind of springboards from there. So like Instagram's fine, but my website, if you want to talk coaching or help, all that kind of stuff, that's just justinmcroberts.com is the place.
Yeah. And I'll be sure to put that link in the show notes too. Um, Justin, there's so much more I'm sure we could continue to talk about here, and so much good wisdom, hard fought wisdom that you are offering. Before we wrap up, is there a permission slip that you would want to give listeners?
Yeah, it's okay to disappoint people.
Mm,
It's okay. It's like really okay. In fact, it's probably necessary. It's good. It is good for you to disappoint people, to disappoint your boss, to disappoint your culture. It's okay to disappoint folks. In order to become who God is making you, you
mm,
have to not be what other people need you to be. And that comes with disappointment. And
wow.
if I'm going to keep really good people from becoming who they're like, who their souls want them to be, like, I'm not going to try to pitch you like heroin and hookers. What I'm going to
Right.
do is I'm going to try to make you feel bad for wanting to be happy and make you feel like the most noble thing you can do is to sacrifice your own well-being, your own becoming for the benefit of other people. That sounds like such a wonderfully noble narrative, but it's a really immature narrative. And
Mm,
it's not what the Spirit of God wants for you in your life. And it's also not the gift the Spirit of God wants you to offer other people. God doesn't want you to live in service to other people at the expense of your own well-being. He wants to make a gift of your whole life to the world around you, which means like the primary goal is to become entirely who he's making you into. which comes at the cost of other people's expectations. Has to. You can't be who God's making you into and be who the people around you, including your parents, including your kids, including your boss. You can't be that person as well. So
Wow.
it's very okay to disappoint people.
Yeah. Man, that takes a lot of courage and a lot of self-work to know who you actually are. Who are we made to be in the world? It's a great question to wrestle with a coach or a spiritual
It totally
director or a
is.
therapist, as you said. Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. Justin, this has been so helpful. And I know that a lot of folks are going to be encouraged. Again, people, go get In the Low. It's a great Christmas present, a great resource to offer people in your life, whether they need it or not. In the moment, they or someone they know will at some point. It's a great one to have. So thanks again for being here, Justin. Appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Permission Slips. I hope this conversation will give you permission to notice the invitations that are waiting for you in the low places and to invite others to help you be curious about the stories you're believing in those places. If you're looking for someone to help you navigate either seasons of transition or to help you prioritize how you want to spend your time, maybe it's helping you identify what it is that you want to create in the world. I know Justin would love to work with you, and so would I. So check out the links in the show notes for ways to get a hold of either one of us. And again, grab your copy of In the Low. Remember, your life matters, and so does the full breadth of your human experience, more than you know.